Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the CADA seminar. My name is Charles Muswhite. I'm the co-director of the Centre for Ageing and Dementia Research that we call CADA. I'm delighted today to welcome Grace Meadows along to talk about music for dementia in our interesting lunchtime session today. Just before we go on to the presentation, I'll give you a bit of background to what we do in CADA for those of you who don't know. So we're a research programme sponsored by Healthcare Research Wales. They put the money up for us to bring together all the researchers in Wales doing research into ageing, including the sort of biological elements, the psychological, sociological, and the arts and humanities based research. And we put it all together and work with those in policy and practice to try and make Wales the place to grow old in and make it, you know, the forefront of happy aging for us all. One of the things we like doing is bringing people together for these seminar sessions. We try and do one once a month on lots of different topics that we hope are relevant to a wide audience. And like I say, today's one, we're delighted to have Grace Meadows with us today to talk about music for dementia. So please do get involved as well. Put your questions in the question part of the GoToWebinar board on there, you'll see, or in the chat function, and we'll try and pick those up at the end. I'll help you with that, Grace, and we can have a look to see which questions have been asked. I quite like to use this word I see here. So Grace, you've had a lifelong career in music, and you initially trained as a bassoonist. Is that right?
Bassoonist, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Brilliant. And then you've kind of done lots of stuff with music therapy for health, for social care, education settings, probably across the life course as well. Done stuff for kids as well as older people. Brilliant. So really trying to use your music background to sort of help people with their health and their well-being. So yeah, I really look forward to listening to what you've got to say. And yeah, I expect you've got some nice videos to play as well and things like that. So over to you, Grace.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much. Well, before we get into the presentation and thinking about music and how it supports our health and well-being, we're going to talk about you and your music. So this is where to get your fingers ready at the keyboard, because I have 3 questions to get us warmed up. And I should also say I'm delighted that to be speaking to this Welsh network, because my husband's family are in Wales and we have lots of love for Welsh. And of course, you are all fabulous musicians with a real love of music. So 3 questions to get us warmed up. We're going to start with what music matters to you. So if you could have dinner with one musical star, they could be dead or alive, who would it be? So pop that into the chat, and if anyone wants to jump on and say who that might be, then do that as well. But let's see some of those answers come through in the chat. It'd be really interesting to see. Tom Jett, yeah, classic, absolute classic. Yes, I think many of us would agree with the choice there of Tom Jett. Stevie Wonder, yeah, absolutely. I don't know that I could make just a decision about one person. I think that would be almost impossible. I'd have to have a series of dinner parties. Any more that people want to share? Oh, Bob Dylan, yeah, Bob Dylan, yeah, great shout. I think lots of people, including my father-in-law, who's in Monmouth, would love to have dinner with Bob Dylan. Okay, so keep adding them in, because it'll be interesting to come back to them later on, actually, to see where people's musical tastes are. So next question is, what's the one song or piece of music you would take to your desert island? It's a tough one, this, I think. I'm stumped every time I try and ask myself it. But just pop any choices in the chat. That'd be really interesting to see. Oh, lovely choice. Yeah, Whitney's, yeah, lovely. Yeah, I really like that. So we've got a bit of a mix there of classical and pop. Fantastic. Yeah, okay. Well, again, keep adding them in, because that's really important. And then last question. Describe in one word how your favourite piece of music makes you feel. Again, another tough one, I think, to try and whittle it down to one word and one feeling. Mix of, oh, you've cheated there with that mix of emotion. But yes, it does. It evokes all things, doesn't it? You know, it does just that. Uplifted, yeah. And we'll talk more about emotions and music as we go through, because it's quite an important point. We can often get stuck in thinking about music as doing or being or supporting one way of thinking or feeling, but actually it's much more amenable than that in terms of how it can work for us. So keep going. Oh, another mix there. You can pick up a piece of music for a particular mood or to reflect and think about something. Absolutely. So already the kind of complexity of how we engage with music, how we think about it, is coming through in these answers. So I asked these questions to get us going because they're your answers. They're about your relationship with music. They tell us so much about you, your identity, your culture, your views. They are part of your personality musicalized, if you like, and they're ways in which people think about you and relate to you. Music can be what we need it to be for when we need it to be those things. So when we need to be uplifted, it's there to uplift us. When it's there to provide that sanctuary of reflection or privacy or moment of calmness or soothing, then it's there. If it's that I am in utter rage and I need to stomp it out, dance it out, again, it does all of those things for us. And that is actually no different for people living with dementia. It may present itself ever so slightly differently in terms of the breadth of expression, but actually fundamentally the same thing is there, and we'll get into that. But most importantly, and I think it's quite important to say this up front, having been at an event this morning where we've been looking very much at the very sharp end of research and the medical aspects of research and diagnosis, and why that is also fundamentally important. We also heard from a woman who has had a very difficult experience in being diagnosed. And what she said was she wasn't heard or seen by the people, the professionals working with her. She felt listened to but not heard. And I think that what music does is enables us to be seen, heard and felt. Truly seen, heard and felt. And it connects us with ourselves and those around us. And so I need to just do a little bit of tech whizzing here, because I would like us to see some of that in action. So what I'm going to do now is show you a very short video of a woman called Joyce, and you'll see her story on the screen as the clip runs. But just watch closely to what happens to her facial expressions, what happens to her body gesture, what happens to her vocalizations and her playing as the video unfolds. So here we go.
It's silly, isn't it?
That's not silly at all.
I think you've... Well, I think you have. You brought me back to life.
So you can see in that, and it gets me every time, that video, what is happening there in that exchange where that woman, Joyce, is being seen and heard and felt. You see her become much more animated. She becomes brighter in her expression. You can see the body movements kicking in, and you can see her playing. Her playing becomes more animated, and the therapist, the music therapist in that instance, is really responding to her, adding her, encouraging her, gently working with her in a beautiful partnership there, in a musical conversation, getting them going. So it's a really, I think for me that encapsulates so much about why we're trying to do what we do with music for dementia. So I'm just going to get the presentation up for you. So music for dementia, really, Joyce encapsulates it, as I say. We are a national campaign to try and make sure that for everyone like Joyce, they have access to music that matters to them as part of their dementia care. Many of you, I don't need to tell you that we are living in a time where we still don't have a cure for dementia and the many different forms that that takes. And realistically, we're not close to one, but then the onus becomes about how we help people to live as well as they possibly can with dementia. And we know through the science, which we'll go into in a moment, why that is the case, that we should be making music a part of dementia care, not only for the person living with dementia, but those around them. And again, we'll think more about that. So as a national campaign, we've been set up to try and help ensure that there is much greater awareness and understanding around the power of music for people living with dementia, for us to try and influence and lobby and change policy where we can to make sure that it's an expected part of dementia care, and also then to bring people together, to bring sectors together, to make more of that excellent work that is happening across the country being more readily available across the UK. We know that this country suffers a lot from the postcode lottery syndrome, and so what we're trying to do is, by showing the breadth and the range of musical offers that are available for people living with dementia, that everything is available for them on their doorstep, or as close to that as we can get. So full information about the campaign can be found on the website musicfordementia.org.uk. And so absolutely our mission, everyone living with dementia can access the right music at the right time and in the right ways for them. There is no one music, as your lovely examples in the chat earlier showed to those questions. There is no one music for everyone. And that often stumps people, I think. They think, oh, we should be able to just use one piece of music with everyone and then, you know, that works. And so I am just going to share my screen to see if that works. And so what we're finding is that, you know, this idea of personalised music is absolutely crucial, which is why we talk about the right music at the right time in the right way. And sorry, I don't think my screen sharing was up to scratch. So I'll just flip to the previous slide so that you can see for your sounds the website if you're not familiar with the look and feel of it. So if you land on that, that's what you should expect to see. Okay, so a little bit about some of where we're at with dementia in the UK, which again, I'm sure many of you are more than aware of. We're nearly pushing 1 million people in the UK living with dementia, and by 2040, this is predicted to almost double to 1.6 million people. And this year, and it could be more than this now because of COVID, we don't yet have the findings of that, that by a further 200,000 people will develop dementia this year. So that's 1 in every 3 minutes. So there's lots of stats, and we know that it costs an extortionate amount to our country, and that the cost of dementia are more than those of cancer and chronic heart disease and stroke combined. And that, of course, unpaid carers pick up the tab, not just financially, but in many other ways as well. So what I won't do today, but I think it's helpful for just to help orientate us, is touch on dementia. And I am not a neuroscientist, so I'm not going to try and talk to you in any huge, massive detail about this. But I think it is helpful to think about the word dementia and it being an umbrella term for symptoms such as memory loss, confusion and personality changes. And that is all caused by a number of diseases. So these are probably familiar terms to you: the vascular dementia, dementia of Lewy bodies, Alzheimer's disease, frontotemporal dementia, and other rarer diseases, Pick's disease, and others. So dementia is a kind of all-encompassing term, which isn't necessarily a very comfortable term, because actually it doesn't speak to what it might always mean for the person living with it, but it's the term that we're using at the moment. But I know, again, from this morning that there are discussions afloat around whether that's even the right term for us to be using. So again, you'll also, I'm sure, be very familiar with these signs of dementias, and there's many forms of this type of poster out there, but there are signs that we are becoming increasingly aware of to look out for when we're aware of aware that somebody might be struggling in one area or not. So problems communicating, difficulty with simple tasks, changes in personality, confusion of time and place, difficulty solving problems. These are just some of the indicators that something might not be right, and it's time to start having some conversations with people. And of course, Professor Tom Kitwood, some of you who may be familiar with him, he was the real thinker behind personalised care, and we have so much to be grateful to him for in terms of how we've really moved on from a very task-oriented care and way of being with people to a much more person-centred way. He reminds us very powerfully that when you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia. So somebody could be presenting with exactly the same symptoms as somebody else, but actually they may present themselves very differently, and that's because we're all unique beings. And it's really important to hold that in mind, because we can get all too easily into the trap of thinking that, oh, that person's got dementia, so that means they're going to want to do this. Absolutely not. It's about who that person is and what they want. So I've got a picture up here of cheesecake, and you might be thinking, where are we going? Well, we are going to Cheesecake Land because it's the way that some neuroscientists talk about the impact of music on the brain. So I heard Professor Seb Crutch from University College London, who is a dementia specialist, talk about music. He's a passionate advocate for the inclusion of music in dementia care. And he talked about how him and his colleagues often think about cheesecake being music being the equivalent of cheesecake. It gets the whole brain firing and lighting up. And there's a number of reasons for that. That's because we are contactable as musical beings. We process music in many, many ways, cognitively, emotionally, physiologically, socially. Music is innately built into us through our early experiences. It helps us tap into the memories of sounds we heard as babies. So mothers are naturally musical in their interactions with babies. So before babies understand the world, or words even as well, they understand their parents' expressions through rhythm, pitch and tempo. Just think of the mother's heartbeat that they will have been listening to over those 9 months, the swishing sounds in the room, the mother's footsteps and their gait. All of that rhythm is built into them. And then, of course, the melody and the vocalizations of the mother's voice. It's a natural hardwired element of the brain and social interaction and musical language that results in, and language then results and builds up from this, which can lead to procedural musical memories, and we'll come to that in a moment. So that's why we often find that the start of a song triggers a memory of a whole song, which is owing to the natural pre-language flow of expression. And songs and music, of course, involve patterns, and we learn to communicate through patterns, and these patterns become embedded in our musical brains. So music then is processed across multiple regions of the brain, and all those regions start to fire upon hearing music. You know, muscular, auditory, visual and linguistic. That's why, you know, when you hear a beat, you find yourself subconsciously just actively responding to that by tapping along. That's why we do respond physically to music. And that's why when verbal language skills have declined, it is still possible to sing words or lyrics from a song, because a different part of the brain is being used, because you're recalling those words through music as opposed to through speech. And music, of course, is processed across the whole brain. And the regions responsible for processing music are sometimes the last to be affected. And music can also access parts of the brain that remain unaffected by dementia. Because of its mercurial nature, we often talk about neural pathways. Well, music's very good at making those neural pathways connect and come together. And music can reach damaged parts of the brains in ways other forms of communication can't. That's because of the multiplicity of processing on different levels, as I say. So when music is delivered effectively, it provides another avenue for communication. So the next time you're having cheesecake, think about music and what's happening with your brain. So we know that music helps in a variety of ways. The science has shown that music helps support psychological and emotional well-being, helps to alleviate symptoms of agitation, apathy, anxiety, and depression, reducing the need for antipsychotic medication, resulting in improved quality of life across the spectrum of dementia. And different forms can be a support tool at all stages of someone's dementia journey. We know that it can support neurological functioning. Engaging in music can stimulate and exercise auditory, cognitive, motor and emotional processing, because, as we said, music's processed across the whole brain and not just one area. And it can help to facilitate communication. So when words are not enough, they're too much, or they're no longer available, music provides an alternative channel for non-verbal communication that is creative and enables self-expression. And then this in turn supports sense of self, identity, agency, and control. It supports social connections. We are all social creatures, and music is a fantastic way of connecting us. And it connects people to themselves, to those around them, maintaining and sustaining relationships, and enabling people to be seen for who they are beyond their dementia. And supporting carers. We know that it's not just the person living with dementia who experiences the benefits of music, the person caring for them also does. So, and one of the ways it does that is help to better connect the person they're caring for with the person living with dementia, then in turn enhancing relationships and connections in the here and now. And why is it important to know this? It's important to know this because it shows that the feel good that we all associate with in music is rooted in science, and it demonstrates that the arts and culture, particularly music, aren't a nice to have, they're an absolute necessity. So these are some of the findings that have been gathered from research into the power of music for people living with dementia. All of this, I should say, is on our website, so don't feel that you have to try and absorb all this information right now. But just a couple of things that are worth teasing out here, that, we have seen that music therapy reduces agitation and the need for medication in 67% of people living with dementia. That's a really powerful piece of information that we need to be paying attention to. And we knew that music can trigger the brain to release chemicals such as endorphins that distract the body from pain. And that can be really important when we're thinking about care, and we'll come to that in a bit. But also the areas in which are improved by the inclusion of music in care, so general attention, cognition, memory, speech and communication skills. So there's a lot of science out there backing up the case for music to be included, and I'm not sure that we need to keep making that particular case anymore. I think we need to be moving into the area of telling stories of how it makes a genuine difference to people's lives. So, but just staying with the science for a little bit longer, I'm going to think a bit about music and memory, because again, this is something I often get asked about. Why is it I can't remember what day it is, but I can remember the words to songs that I used to sing from my youth? Well, we have many types of memory, two examples of which are procedural and semantic. So procedural is where you can't remember what happened yesterday, but have motor skill memory, which allows actions such as playing instruments. So you might see somebody who has quite pronounced dementia, but actually can still play the piano or can play an instrument of some kind. And that's because they're working with their procedural memory in that case. And the other example is semantic memory. So these are memories we rehearse over time, memories of meaning. They take on different status and are recorded in a different way within our brains. And that's why songs of our youth, for example, can trigger something because we've processed it time and time and time again. And it's often associated with a very important life moment that we have rehearsed again and again. We go back and revisit it over and over in our life. You know, we remind people of our wedding days. We remind people of our of firstborns happening, or the move out of home for the first time, whatever it might be. That's a big moment. Those memories are rehearsed a lot, and that's why they can then trigger those responses to music that we see. But we know, as I mentioned, that there are over 100 types of dementia, and therefore it's really important to personalise the music. So for those who have dementia that affects the front of the brain, they find some sounds aversive and they might want something smooth and soothing rather than upbeat and busy. So we'll come into thinking about that a little bit more, but it's just this idea that there is no one piece of music or way of experiencing music that fits everyone, and that doesn't particularly stay static over time. I remember talking to a lovely lady at a conference, and she's quite vocal in the dementia space actually, and she talked about her PCA dementia, which affects the back of her brain. She said she used to love music, really love music, but actually because of her dementia and the way it was affecting her sensory processing, she couldn't listen to it anymore. And so we said, well, why don't we think about microdosing music, if you like, building up that kind of music muscle again. So could she start with introducing sort of 20-30 seconds of music a day, building up to a minute, 2 minutes, and so on. And I don't think it was I think it was about 6 months before I saw her again, and she came rushing up to me at another event and she said, Grace, I've done it. And I said, what have you done? What have you done? And she said, I have been able to build up my capacity to process music again, so I can enjoy 10 minutes of it a day. I have to be very particular about the type of music that I listen to, but I can now put 10 minutes on, and they are my special 10 minutes of the day where I get to enjoy the music that I love listening to. So it's really that kind of understanding that person, understanding how their dementia is presenting, and then thinking about how to apply the music to that. And of course, our relationship, not only with dementia, of course that changes over time, but our relationship with dementia will change over time, and recognizing that there are different moments along that journey and that music might be used in different ways at different times over that period. And of course, it's more than a memory. We're working with the memory, of course, but with the purpose to connect in the here and now. So by going back in time through music, it can help you be very present in the here and now. And Agnes talks beautifully about this, because I think this speaks to the power of music and what it does around emotions. I may not remember when it was, but I will remember how it made me feel. And I think that's what we're saying here with music is, for those who can recall lyrics, that's fantastic, but you don't have to be able to recall the lyrics or name that song or name that piece of music to remember how it makes you feel and the way it will continue to make you feel. And I think this is a quote that will long stay with me. And again, Dr. Jennifer Butte, and many of you might know her. She's a retired GP and she lives with dementia, and she has a fantastic website and blog called Glorious Opportunity. And she's written recently about music and emotion, and talks about how when we listen to music, powerful emotions can be released, and the influence of past experiences when we're listening to music really influence that. So when that music was listened to, with who, what those associations are. So of course, some of that music might take us back to very joyful, celebratory times, but some of that music may also take us back to more tricky times in our lives, periods that we probably don't want to recall. So it's being mindful of that. And reactions may vary, absolutely. So this idea that reactions to the same piece might be different at different times. So There might be somebody in their early stages of their experience with dementia who absolutely love listening to a piece of music and it brings them real joy and uplift, but actually later on in their journey they could have a very different response to that. So it's that idea that we were thinking about earlier about being mindful of the relationship to music and how that changes over time, and then using music for these different purposes. Using music to distract, calm, stimulate, focus. There are so many different ways, and we'll touch on some of those. But music really can and does give us lots of ways in which we can use it to help shape our days, our weeks, and our relationships. And of course, tears. Tears can be an expression of a very fond moment. They can also be tears of distress. And so when we're working with music and tears appear, that was a bit of a tongue twister. We have to be careful about what the meaning of those tears might be. It can be very quick to assume that somebody's in distress. And obviously, if they are in distress, the music needs to be turned off or stopped, and that person needs to be consoled and supported and that worked through. But they can be beautiful tears. They can be beautiful tears of affection, of real of a loving moment. So tears absolutely are something to watch out for when we're working with music, but it's the feeling, it's the affect behind those tears. Where are those tears coming from? And having the conversation around what they might mean. We can make too many assumptions too quickly about responses to music, so it's always worth taking a moment to think about what those responses mean. Another assumption that is often thought about when it comes to music is, I can't feel the benefits of music because I'm not musical myself. Well, we have seen over the past 9 months or so the wonder that is the marvellous Paul Harvey, and I had the greatest pleasure of meeting Paul and Nick a couple of weeks ago. But they will be the first to tell you that you do not have to be a Paul, you do not have to be a virtuosic instrumentalist or a pianist in his case in order to feel the benefits of it. You can never have picked an instrument up before in your life. You can think that you're not musical, but you can absolutely feel the benefits of it. And that's because you don't have to be technically musical in order to benefit from it. How many of us would say that we enjoy singing in the shower and it gets us going in the morning? There is a benefit of music. It is a mood changer. You know, there are so many ways in which we engage with music that it's not all about the technical participation that determines benefits. So that's just an assumption that I think it's really worth dispelling actually, is that music is for all of us. We are all inherently musical beings and we all have the capacity to respond to music. So, ripples stem from music, wherever music flows. So you find that it's not just, and again, Nick, Paul's son, talks very much about this. For him, when he sees Paul at the piano playing and in his glory of being a musician and being seen for Paul, who he is, a talented man with fantastic musical skill, he is feeling satisfied. He knows his dad is safe. He knows his dad is happy. He knows his dad is being his dad. And I think these are some of the many ways in which people experience the impact. And some of the videos we're going to come to, we'll talk to this. But the ripple effects span out beyond the person living with dementia. They very much touch on places and spaces. So we know that it can really change work environments. We know that it can make a real difference for carers. It can offer them respite. It can offer them a way of engaging with the person that they're caring for in a way that's beyond the everyday tasks that need doing. It can create meaning, moments of meaning and connection. So the ripples span far and wide. And I think actually Paul and Nick's story has been testament to that actually over the past 9 months. We've heard more people talking about the power of music. We've had that fantastic donation from Sir Tom Hunter and Lady Marion. So the ripple effects of music really do spread far and wide. And what we're seeing actually is that the understanding of the impact of dementia is starting to be taken notice of by those who help set the agenda for our health and social care in this country. So I won't linger too long on policy, but just to say that the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence back in 2019 reintroduced music and music therapy in their guidance for people living with dementia. This was a significant win here, because previously they'd thought really only about pharmacological answers to dementia, and so this is an absolute recognition of the importance of arts and culture in supporting people living with dementia. And we've also seen through the dementia wellbeing guidance that was issued around COVID-19 pandemic is the inclusion again of music in helping people to live well through that. And we had some of our campaign resources referenced in that, the music for people with dementia and carers during COVID-19 guide, which you can still find on our website. And just going back to this idea of Professor Tom Kitwood and personalised care, there are 4 elements really: choice and control, strength, needs and abilities, identity, and what matters to you and why. And I think this is the really important one. I think they're all very important, but what matters to you and why helps determine many of those other elements. And personalised care is something that is part of the NHS's long-term plan at the moment, and is where we are seeing the move towards ways in working happening. And it's all around putting the person at the heart of the conversation. What matters to you and why? And so the NHS, we won't go through this in huge detail, but they have this model for personalised care, which has 3 tiers. This universal model that everyone can access, more targeted level of care. So this is universal plus these additional interventions, and then more specialist interventions for those who have more complex needs. And what we did was we took this model and we made it musical to try and help people understand how they can make personalised musical care happen. So again, this is available on our website, but just briefly thinking about this, the idea is that everyone has the capacity to have this universal experience with music, and that anyone can experience and enjoy music at any time. So this could be singing, listening to a personalised playlist, playing a musical instrument, experiencing live music in the community, hopefully again soon, and social musical events. The second level is around music being a specific activity in which people with dementia can participate and gain a wide range of benefits. So these are more sort of targeted groups that have a specific focus. So singing for the brain groups, for example, dementia choirs, personalised live music activities, or joining a group where there is a focus on supporting overall health and well-being. And then the third tier is a bespoke intervention to improve particular aspects or support particular aspects of health and well-being. So this might be communication, psychological, emotional and physical health, and this is where you might see music therapy more pronounced. But I'd say that it's not, again, similarly to the idea of somebody's dementia journey and it not being linear, the experience here is that it's not necessarily you do 1, then 2, then 3. It might be that you do a mix at different times, going back to the idea that that relationship with music and with dementia changes over time. And so what does then musical care look like? Well, it can look like many things, and it can look like what you need it to be. But some examples here, we know that often personal care is a distressing and an uncomfortable experience for people, but it can really help to aid it. It can provide a distraction, it can provide a different focus, it can create a meaning of connection, it can help get over the embarrassment and the awkwardness perhaps of it, and it can also encourage someone to feel more at ease when experiencing personalised care. And again, in terms of that carer, they do not have to be a musician in order to make that happen. That could be about popping on a playlist at the right time, at the right volume. It could be about them simply humming the kind of known part of a tune and making contact in that way. It could actually be a much more wider, setting-wide offer, but there are so many different ways in which you can drop music in to personal care. It can also be a great way of preparing somebody for the fact that personal care is about to happen. So that idea of supporting transitions, we know that there are particular moments in the day that can be very challenging or difficult for people. And so helping use music as a bridge to get from one moment to another, to help wake up in the mornings, to winding down at night, to getting towards key moments in the day, such as meal times. We know that there's a growing body of evidence that actually music really supports nutrition because people feel more relaxed, they feel more motivated. It's a more social experience that's being created when music's provided, and so people want to enjoy the meal with others. It's a social experience that we're all very used to. So music can really help aid that along. And of course, there are other aspects of health that music supports. With my work in the NHS, I worked often with physiotherapists, speech and language therapists, or occupational therapists, where music would be the motivator, particularly if there was an exercise program that needed to be delivered. People might feel very reluctant to engage with that, but actually the music might get them going, get them motivated, spur them on a bit. And we see that absolutely in dementia care. And of course, this idea of coming back to creating meaningful engagement, providing focus and stimulation. After all, music is something that brings us together and creates connection. So there are many ways in which musical care can exist and be, but these are just a couple of examples to get us thinking about that. And another resource that we created, and again, this is on our website, this is very bright and it's colourful and there's lots on there, and you can go and explore it at your own leisure. But what we were trying to do here was take the dementia pathway and musicalise it. So show people why they might want to have music as part of their care, where they can experience music, who they can experience it with, and when they can experience it with. So you can see here there's a variety of different settings that are highlighted: hospitals and clinics, art venues, places of worship, at home, in care settings. There are the reasons why you might want to experience music and have it as part of your care, the sheer enjoyment and pleasure and creativity of being part of something musical, or supporting confidence or enhancing personal care, and then the different ways in which you might experience music. So music therapy, to singing, to playlists, to learning an instrument, to online activities, and again the different types of people that you might experience that with: music practitioners, volunteers, family and friends, music therapists. So that's something for you to go away and have a look at in more detail in your own time, and share far and wide so people understand how music can be embedded throughout the dementia pathway. And we talk very much about the musical menu of choice, this idea, as I said at the beginning, about the right music at the right time, in the right way, delivered by the right person. There is no one size fits all. So this idea of the musical menu of choice, everything from listening to music therapy, from music as an entertainment, as an activity, to a therapeutic psychosocial offer. Music can be what you need it to be at that time. So it's really getting to that personalized message of right music at the right time, in the right way, delivered by the right person. So I was thinking about how I would articulate the benefits of group and individual music therapy, and music and music therapy, and I started listing out things, and I found that I was writing two very similar columns. And there are many benefits, and these are just some of those. And whether you do that in a group or whether you do that in an individual experience will depend on where you are at with your dementia and your ability to engage. For some people, they will absolutely want that group experience because they want that social cohesion, that social connection. But for others, they might want that sanctuary of a one-to-one experience where it might be about processing psychologically their diagnosis and what that means to them, what the future might look like, and so on and so forth. So really it depends, but the benefits, I would say, are very similar regardless of which experience you have. They will all offer you many of these things in terms of choice making, connections, understanding that empathic experience, supporting self-esteem and confidence, autonomy, validation, being seen, heard and felt. So there are many benefits, and I'm sure that you would all have others to add to this list at all, so it's by no means exhaustive. And again, it comes back to this idea that we are social creatures, and in music, it's about being with others, forming that musical conversation, that musical connection. So it's not about doing to. We really encourage people to think about how they can be with people in music, because that is where the connection happens. That is where, as lots of people talk about, the magic happens. You are with people. Nobody likes to be told what to do, and we all like doing stuff with others. So that's really an important message to hold on to. So I wanted to share, again, we're going to hit a little tech moment. I'm going to share another video with you. And this is a lovely video of work that's happening with a fantastic organisation. And I'll just hand over to the video to let it do its thing, really.
Tibbs Dementia Foundation offer Music for Memory, which is a community music therapy group, or two groups, which we run here in Bedford. And it's for people with dementia and their carers to come weekly to a consistent, supportive, creative space. And it's run with therapeutic principles in mind. So shall we begin with Brian's favourite song? Yes! Here we go. I've been a music teacher for most of my life, but I always wanted to be a music therapist. I have two autistic brothers, so I grew up in an environment of music therapy which really supported and helped them.
I think what attracted me to James in the first place is that we had a lot of similar interests. Music probably has to be right up there because he played in a brass band and we both play the piano, he plays the harpsichord, and I sing in a choir. Lewy body dementia is one of the more complex types of dementia because it's got some symptoms of Alzheimer's and some symptoms of Parkinson's disease.
Music for Memory has been a pretty solid basis we've been able to build on. It's kept me in touch with music. And I always have been a not very good player, but I still like playing.
We have such a good time, we have such a good laugh, we dance, we sing, we do all sorts of things, and we have a very gifted keyboard player, and the music therapist, Jenny, she plays the accordion. We have percussion instruments, and we just have a really good time.
All of the volunteers are aware of how to help people with dementia to engage and how to encourage someone with dementia to lead and not just to follow. Nothing is wrong in a therapeutic environment, and so if someone wants to play an instrument upside down or wants to get up in the middle of a song and dance, there is no right or wrong. So it works very well here.
So I think that's a beautiful example there of the different types of offers that are available for people living with dementia and what that does there for that couple in terms of keeping them connected through their shared love of music. And as Jenny says, and she's a wonderful music therapist, that it gives that kind of non-judgmental space where all communication is welcome, be that a movement, a musical gesture, a physical gesture, it's all to be worked with. And so thinking about how you make the music happen, it all starts with a conversation and making it a musical one, as we've talked about. It's finding out what music matters to that person and why. Why does that music matter? When did they first hear it? Who did they first hear it with? Where were they at that time? What's the story? What does that story tell you about them, and where does it build to? What was the next song that it might take you to, or the next piece of music? And through that you can start to build up an idea of who that person is. Where and when would they now like to experience music? Do they want to have their own playlist that they can have access to at any time of the day? So if they're struggling with their sleep late at night, can they hear that music to help soothe and calm and reassure? Or do they need to have music first thing in the morning to help rouse them, to get them started for the day? And so what we've done in our guides that are available on our website is create a template to help people have those musical conversations. There's a list there of questions prompting you with ideas about the kind of things or entry points for a conversation about music. So tell me about you and your music. How important is music to you and why? And so on. And I think that this is really an important tool to have, because you can record the outcomes of those conversations and record those musical preferences, and then start to be thinking about, well, actually, I need to be talking to people about this person's preferences around music, when and where they want to be experiencing this music. It needs to be part of their care plan. And who do I need to be talking to about that? Do I need to be telling the GP? Do I need to be telling their social worker? Do I need to be telling the volunteer or the carer that comes in and supports them 3 times a week? Whoever it might be, it's really worth sharing that with them, because it can be a very useful tool for them to be aware of as well. And then, of course, once you've got that knowledge and that understanding of what music that person likes and how they want to experience it, it's about, well, where can you find that music? So of course there are lots of digital offers at the moment, and we have them listed on our musical map for dementia. But what we're hoping as we move through the rehabilitation and recovery from COVID is we'll see all those wonderful in-person services like Jenny's come back to being in-person offers again, and we'll have them listed on the musical map for dementia. So you can find out what's happening. You pop your postcode into the map, and then you can see what opportunities are available to you locally. And there's everything, really thinking about that musical menu of choice, everything from singing right through to music therapy and everything in between, including, I think we did previously have things on there such as dementia discos and so on. So there's a whole range of stuff that is available, and we hope that more and more of that will become available over the coming months. And I think family and friends play a really crucial role here. As Nick has testified with his father, Paul, there is something so valuable about being able to see the person that you love or the person that you care for who they are beyond their dementia. So it might be that they're able to support with transport to get somebody to a service or an event or a group. It might be that they just want to know a bit more about how they connect with the person that they're caring for or the person that they love. And music is a really important way to help them do that. So it's about sharing that information very much with them and making them part of that musical conversation. And of course, we have our radio station, m4dradio.com. So you can go on there. What we try to do is start to shape what you can hear on the mix channel to support your day. So we have morning slots, we have music from yesteryear, we have sing-along, we have music to move to, a pre-dinner dance slot often, and then smooth sounds to wind down to in the evening. And that programming changes all the time, so you can follow that every day of the week. And also on there, and I'd encourage you to do this, is we have a dedication slot now. So you can dedicate a song or a piece of music to somebody that you love or that you're caring for, and we will endeavour to play that on our dedication show for you. So use our resources really is a big call to action. There are lots and lots for you to explore on the Music for Dementia website, and you can take what you want and need from them as you go. But there are lots and lots of resources on there, including more information about the research and the science and all of the many organisations providing musical services. So I wanted to sort of move us towards wrapping up with another lovely video. Again, this is a music therapy example, but again, it really speaks to the idea of the impact, not only for the person living with dementia, but the person caring for them. So I'm just going to take us to this next video now.
As soon as the music starts, she just goes into a different world. She relaxes completely. She thoroughly enjoys it. And I think it's a scientific fact that music's one of the few things that reaches all corners of the brain. So yeah, people suffering with dementia find it very, very therapeutic. Up until not too long ago, we used to go here, there and everywhere dancing. She was a very good dancer. So bringing her back now to Fraser's music therapy hours, it's just tremendous, works wonders for her. Loves every minute she's here each week. Just takes her back, and as you can see, she's still got a good voice. That was lovely.
Beautiful example of the power of music to connect and help people be in the here and now and bring that all very much needed joy. So just moving towards wrapping up and taking your questions and thinking more with you. If you remember 4 things from today, I would love you to remember that everyone can help to make music a part of care. You do not have to be a musician, you do not have to be a music therapist. You need to know about the benefits of music and its power and the ways in which you can help it happen for people. That might be signposting them to services, that might be putting them in touch with a music therapist, it might be directing them to our website, but everyone can help to make music a part of care. And the more we talk about the power of music, the more we signpost people to resources, the more people are aware of it and the more people can be asking for it and accessing it. So you do not have to be a musician to make music happen. The other thing that's really important to say is that people with dementia can try new experiences with music. You do not have to just use the old classics. I met a fantastic lady a couple of years ago. Some of you may have come across her. But she talked about her love of music, and she has put her playlist together because she doesn't want to be played Vera Lynn when she can no longer verbally express what music she wants to listen to. She very plainly said that the music that matters to her is Led Zeppelin. That's the music she grew up with, and that's the music that she wants to have played when she wants to hear music. And I thought it was really interesting. She said, in fact, I think she said it was possibly even on live on radio. She said, "Do not play me Vera Lynn. I absolutely do not want to hear that because my music is Led Zeppelin. That's the music I grew up with. That's the music I love." Absolutely, Catherine. And so that is really important. And you need never have picked up a baton before, you need never have picked up an instrument before. All because you haven't doesn't mean you can't try new experiences. I have seen countless times musicians and music therapists go into care settings where they are working with people who've never played an instrument before, and extraordinary things happen because somebody has been seen and heard and felt. They've been given choices, they've been given opportunities, and they've been part of a creative, person-orientated experience. And that is so powerful. It's not whether they are able to knock out virtuosic piano playing. It's about the act of making and being together, which is so important. So don't ever think that people living with dementia can't try or don't want to try new experiences with music. And of course, the other is that music does not have to be an expensive intervention or offer. We have never been able to access music so readily or so easily as we can do now in this digital age. But there are also so many other offers out there. People like Tibbs Dementia provide really fantastic services for very low cost for people. And that's not to devalue the work that's going on, but that's just to say that in terms of access, it does not have to be an expensive intervention. So I've talked for a really long time. There is lots of information still that you can find out more about on our website, where you can join us, you can become a Music for Dementia champion. There are resources for you to help campaign with. But over to you really now. I'm sure there are lots of questions out there, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and invite people to share questions or feedback.
Great, thank you so much, Grace. That was wonderful, and you can see from the comments on the question and answers and on the chat just how well your presentation has gone down. We can all resonate with how important music is in all of our lives, and it's really nice to be able to hear that you can carry on being part of that music scene, if you like. If it's everything from just listening to joining in to being part of a disco, even if you know, changes in your cognition, changes in your eyesight, changes in your hearing that happen, you know, with various conditions, dementia and the like as we age. So it's wonderful, and wonderful work you're doing to carry that on, and everyone's really enjoyed the presentation from what I can see. Just there's a couple of questions coming in that I might pose to you from people from now. I mean, lots of what you talked about there was, you know, you showed how important it was the co-presence, I think, of listening together sometimes. So whether that's, you know, through a carer or a family member, there's something nice about enjoying the music together or joining in with the music together. And Faye Roberts asks, she's overseas from where her mother is and would quite like to be able to play music over Zoom. You know, we're all experiencing this kind of thing at the moment, doing things from distance. So, but we're worried about, you know, lag and things like that. So have you got any tips for, you know, sharing music together at distance, you know, especially over this last year that we've had to do, where we can't be quite so together with people, I suppose?
Absolutely, it's a bit of a trial and error, and so it would work differently for different people according to setups. But some people have gone to really back to basics with it, and they've just used phone calls. So if I was calling somebody, I would have the music on at my end, loud enough so they can still hear me speak, but it's there in the background per se. And that's one way of doing it. It might be, if they've got the capacity to get online, there might be a concert, an online concert that you can both attend together, and then you can have a conversation about that. Or it could be about putting a playlist together and then dropping them a little message if they've got access to a messaging service to say, just thinking about you right now, and I'm listening to our playlist, and you know what, I'm listening to track number 5 and it's really making me smile and want to move, and imagining us being together. There's lots of lovely little ways that you can do it to sort of get around those time lags, because what you don't want to do is engage somebody in a musical experience that actually might confuse or distress them even further. So I think actually it's something I didn't mention, but this is a nice moment to mention it, around hearing impairment and listening to music. And actually, so it's really, for those, a lot of people aren't aware of the association between hearing impairment and dementia, and that the acceleration of a dementia can be brought about by a hearing impairment, because if you have an hearing impairment, you might become more socially withdrawn, you're less socially active, you're not using those parts of the brain as much. So it's really important to get your hearing tested, and regularly, because it will change, and it will also change how you appreciate, enjoy, can process the music. So for example, some people have awful issues with things sounding very tinny, so that might determine what choice of music you listen to. Other people might need much slower paced music to accommodate the hearing impairment. So there's something there to think about in terms of hearing, and that being an access point to having those experiences with music.
Yeah, excellent. And you know, building on that playlist thing, Rosie Mering asks, what's the best music repositories if you want to find a particular genre of music or particular decade to play with someone? You know, is there an easy way these days to put together a personalized playlist? You know, I think we used to just record them onto tapes from the stereo back in the day, but yeah, it's become more accessible. But yeah, mega mixes and the like, but it's become more accessible, but perhaps for some more complex, and then you've both got to be you know, sharing the same platform or something like that. I mean, any tips or thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question, because actually for those who are digitally savvy, we don't think twice about it. But for those who aren't so digitally savvy, it can be really bamboozling and often quite overwhelming. So I think it depends on where the person's at. So if they are able to get online, there are obviously platforms such as YouTube and Spotify and Google Music and Apple Music and so on, you know, the big giants, if you like, of tech world. But there are also other organizations such as Playlist for Life that can help you think about how to put those playlists together and the technology to use. And of course, there's things like Alexas, so you can pre-program playlists for somebody. So if you can't be with them in person, you can buy a smart device and pre-program that, having had that conversation beforehand about what music matters to them and why, and then you could send it to them as a surprise gift. And they're, you know, if you make it very clear in terms of how they then ask Alexa or the smart speaker to do its thing, then that makes it easy for them to access that. But I would always say that it's really helpful to have that playlist written out as a guide. And you might even want to think about how you animate that with, or, you know, visualize that with pictures. So it could be the album cover, or it could be a particular memory that's associated with each song or track, just so that it helps orientate people all the time to what they're listening to and why they chose it and why it's mattered. And it's also then a really nice kind of conversation way of getting back into conversation. So if you're finding it tricky to make a connection, be like, oh, what's that picture there? Oh, is that you on your wedding day or whatever? You know, it's a lovely way of just getting back into conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. It just shows, doesn't it, that music triggers off all of those other memories and thoughts. And, you know, like you've been saying, it isn't just the music per se, it's how it relates to so many important things, to so many, you know, for everyone really. And it's just about finding that connection and finding the right way of playing it, I expect. Faye's built on her question by saying she's a musician herself and she'd quite like the idea of being a music champion for Music for Dementia, but is it just UK based at the moment? Is there overseas versions of it at all?
So Music for Dementia is a UK based campaign, but that does not mean you can't be a champion. The more champions we have, the better. So do please come and sign up. That'd be fantastic to have your support. No, that's absolutely there for everyone. The more people we've got singing for the same hymn sheet, the better, so to speak.
Yeah, sounds great. And I think that's really it for questions. Just lots of other people saying how, you know, how impressed they are with all the stuff that you've done and how they're going to use lots of the things. The M4D radio, that's, you know, that's such a wonderful, you know, resource to have that's targeted at a particular group that otherwise, you know, mainstream radio perhaps gets a bit lost on, or, you know, you don't feel quite so involved in it all. So that's really good.
Yeah, and with the radio, if people have ideas, if, you know, they can obviously dedicate songs and pieces of music to people. But the other thing we're really keen on doing is making content with people living with dementia and carers. So get in touch with us if you are passionate about a particular style or genre of music, if you want to put your playlist together, and we can put that out on our station and celebrate everybody's music. That's a really lovely thing that we're able to do. So, you know, get in touch with us if you want to be part of that.
Yeah, I see Michelle Jones has a hand up. Did you want to actually ask a question? Are you happy to ask a question in person, Michelle? Can we unmute and see if she wants to?
I think Michelle has gone, actually. I can't see her.
Okay, she had a hand up. I just wondered if there's anything extra to
list. Sorry.
Right, that's all right. Now, I was just thinking with the radio, you know, lots of the research I've done with older people, just how important connection to, you know, the outside world is when you're you know, having to spend a lot of the time at home and things like that. And the radio is really important to people like that. And so the discussion bits, do you mix it with you know, discussion pieces, or is it just music based you've got on?
Well, we've kept it music based over the past year, but we've got plans to change that over the coming year because we're looking at how we can expand it. And as you say, there are so many fascinating conversations to be had around music from so many different angles. So we're just looking at forming those different packages at the moment.
Great. Yeah, no, excellent. And I think that's probably about it for questions, Grace, unless anyone's got any last one or two. But it's been a, you know, a brilliant presentation, and it's resonated with all of us here, I think. You know, fits so many, you know, it fits our experience now, doesn't it, in life, and how important music is. And we want that just to carry on forever. I'd hate to think that, you know, any quite normal changes that happen to lots of us as we age would mean we can't enjoy, you know, playing along or dancing or just listening to music, really. So that's, you know, that's really great to hear. So thank you so much, Grace, and thank you for everybody's time today. I think there's perhaps just one last question there. Rosie's just squeezed in at the end. Do you have any good references for the research on music and dementia? Anything in particular that you've drawn upon?
Yeah, there's lots on our website actually, so I'd really encourage you to go to that. But there is lots of live research that Anglia Ruskin University is doing with their Cambridge Institute of Music Therapy Research. They're currently conducting an international trial. There was also a study that came out recently about the digital and online offers of music and how that was being accessed and used by people living with dementia. And then there's also the wonderful work of Dr. Ming Hung Siu, who is a music therapist who did lots of work for his PhD into the impact of carers and music and what it means to have carers participate in music therapy services particularly, but music activities broadly as well. But that's all on our website, and very happy for people to follow up afterwards if they have more questions and they need more information about their research.
Great, thank you very much. Well, that's where we finish it today, I think. So thank you very much for that, Grace. Thanks for your time and presenting that so well. Like I say, it's gone down really well. So thank you very much for that, and thanks to the audience for your questions as well. Just leaves me to say that the next seminar is 14th of June. We're going to be looking at food from that, so from music to food. Lots of two of the most important things in my life, I think. Looking at how we can make food, particularly again in care homes. I think it doesn't have to be perhaps how we have a traditional viewpoint of what food in care homes might look like, a bit like school dinners, perhaps. Not that there's anything wrong with school dinners, but some people may not like that. But a real perhaps sharing some really good best practice that people have had from some of the catering staff and some of the projects that have been done around care homes with that. So that's something to look forward to on that. But other than that, thank you very much everyone for your time, and thanks again to Grace. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you.